Have you ever felt what happens when people are given the space to say what they've never said out loud before? This week, I talk with Rayviation, a video producer, editor, and documentary filmmaker who uses storytelling, comedy, and immersive experiences to bring people into deeper, more honest conversations. Rayviation shares the story behind his documentary, Loving Men, a project that brings together men and non binary participants to explore love, vulnerability, and what gets in the way of emotional expression. In this conversation, we talk about what it takes to put your creative work into the world when you can't control how it will be received, why vulnerability and honesty can transform the way we understand masculinity, and how creating intentional spaces for conversation can deepen connection and shift perspective. Rayviation shares what it was like to witness these conversations in real time and how the experience changed the way he shows up in his own relationships. We also explore the role of community, why disagreement matters more than we think, and how even small moments of connection can create meaningful change. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Files. My name is Kim Menninger, and as an executive coach and former high-tech leader, my personal mission is to help professionals overcome imposter syndrome so that you can advance your career with confidence. Each week, I interview a new guest who brings a powerful perspective to this conversation, including personal stories, best practices, and new insights. The more we talk about this issue, the more we destigmatize imposter syndrome, recognize that we're not alone, and empower ourselves to access the tools and resources that can help us and those around us. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing with others you think would benefit from this conversation. Welcome, Rayviation. It is so wonderful to have you here today. I'm excited to jump in, and I'd love to start by inviting you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kim, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast. A little bit about me. I am a documentary and comedy filmmaker originally from Lowell, Massachusetts. However, I currently find myself here in Chicago, Illinois. I truly love the environment, truly love the city, the people, the food. It's amazing. And within all of this, and really like being able to step into my artist persona of Rayviation, I've really come down to a couple of things within myself, right? Like that's really taking the producer side of my brain, the editor side of my brain, the marketing consultant part of my brain, and really wrapping that up all together and then calling it into a new sort of practice that I like to call media mixology.
Ooh, I like that. And I'm curious because anything creative can
Mm.
bring with it some vulnerability too, right? Because you're putting yourself out into the world in a very
Hmm.
big way. And I wonder, how does it feel for you? When you mentioned comedian in particular, that to me feels like the scariest thing in the world to try to be funny.
Yes. It's it truly is it's a challenge, it's a skill, you know what I mean? It's a muscle that people definitely train more on. I feel like I have like the most like ideal sort of like funny bone within me where of course like I want to make people laugh, but my immigrant upbringing like it also prevents me from being too distracting from class and whatnot. So doing something in a way where I'm like, yeah, the students are laughing, the kids are laughing, and then that's all well and good. But it's actually funny that you mentioned that in terms of the comedy work because the latest comedy project that I put out there was a play that I had actually written and gotten produced back in Lowell called The Cookie Referendum. And that one was a very funny, immersive satire play about the a middle school having a very contentious election and the electorate essentially caught in the middle of it. And it was about this like issue about how cookies are distributed in the school, right? And I think that there was just like so many things between like both of those characters who were playing the leads, along with like the actors that we also had played within the audience as well. And there is something maybe a little twisted, maybe a little sick, but I promise I use it for good about the level of control that you can also like plant within something and then just allowing for spontaneity at the same time, right? Because there's a section in that play where we were just like, hey, yes, there's going to be a debate between these two candidates and their platforms and how they were going to go about things. But also, audience, now that we have all stepped into this middle school auditorium, we can also ask them questions as well. So there was also like an improv nature to the play too. So like the students, who again were first time actors who were amazing, truly shout out to them wherever they are. Allowed for like those like really funny moments for people to be like, well, I actually have something to say, and it was just so great when it wasn't just the people on stage being funny. It was truly everybody just like really leaning into the absurdity of it. So, satire, I'm a real big fan of satire, and I feel like it also plays out into my documentary work too.
I love that. I mean, and I love the collective nature of how you're describing it too, because it takes some of the pressure off you being the only one performing, right?
Hmm.
There's a collaborative elements to it, which I would think would make it more fun and also less scary.
Well, I will say, like, the scariness still comes in, Kim. All right. And the scariness comes in when you're relinquishing control over your narrative and really letting the thing play out there. Because another part of this that was sort of unexpected for me, right? And I feel like this is like a thing that any artist, creative, anybody who just works in a market or an industry where you're putting your own product out there, something you work really hard on, and this and that, and now all of a sudden they're using people will take it and be like, oh wow, Fight Club is about how we should actually just start like beating each other up as men and this and that. And it's just like, no, you're missing the entire other point in the satire. And they were like, nope, the imagery was cool. Like, this is what we got to do. Boom. So I felt a little bit about that in my play when I saw how they were reacting to one candidate versus the other. And it was a thing where I was just like, okay, this is how we got to where we are in this country. Like the way that we are doing politics in this way, like creates madness in a petri dish. And I was just trying to have fun with cookies.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, that's so interesting. And all comes down to sort of the human psychology of it all, right?
For
Have
sure.
you have you always done this?
Hmm. This is in playwriting, filmmaking,
Yeah, the
creative.
creative space. Like, have you always done, has that always been your career path?
Yeah, I would say so. I think from a very young age, I was always I think like it was actually funny when my father came to visit me in Chicago for the first time and was meeting my girlfriend Ari, who is an amazing theater actress in her own way. Was asking me like, oh, like how what was Ray Sam like as a kid, right? And my dad said he watched a lot of TV, and I think that like that the Barney is a gateway drug for me, right? So I've always done that. Have always been interested with camera work, especially. I feel like it really got solidified when I was able to attend my high school, which was Neshoba Valley Technical High School in Westford, Massachusetts, and they had a TV media program there, and it was really the thing that helped me get out of my shell, get out of like my comfort zone in that way, because there's so many things that were just so different from like my initial upbringing coming from Lowell and now being in like the Westford school system and having people be like, oh, you're the first black person I've ever met. And like, you're this and that. And like, oh, like, what do you do? Like, I'm assuming that you're into this. And I'm like, no, like,
Mhm.
not at all, if anything. And I feel like for me, going through that TV media program where it was both TV media and theater arts, right? So it was something where I'm like, okay, like not only do I know how to edit a really good documentary, but I also can play seaweed in the play. And not only that, I know how the sets are actually built, like what actually goes into how the sausage is made of production. Because again, like there's so much to live production, especially that just again, that whole anything that can go wrong will go wrong thing, like sometimes you just got to just like throw that out of the mind and just persist and do something great live. So I have an immense respect for anybody who does anything live, and that's not just on stage. I'm Hey, if you are a chef, if you are a waiter, if you're doing all these kind of things, like that's all live presentation. Like there
True.
is no like real scripts that you can lean on. That's always going to be 100% tried and true. So
That's very,
that's how I like think about that.
yeah. And just as an aside, I live in Groton, so we were practically neighbors.
Yeah, there is. Yep. That's so great. I was actually just in Groton this past November actually.
Hey, oh, that's so funny. And Chicago is one of my favorite cities. We were just there last year.
Ah, that's fun.
There, yeah. Uh, well, I want to talk about your documentary because
Hmm.
I think I've been really, really interested in learning more about how you got there, right? Like what was the I want to sort of introduce the audience into the inspiration behind it, what it was like to do it. So start wherever you're most comfortable in telling us more about that.
Sure, sure. So I would essentially start as all stories start like during the pandemic, right? And that was a period of time where, we were all looking to try to connect with people inside. We were trying to like keep like certain creative sparks alive while also like dealing with, of course, tragedy and loss and like really trying to like stay together, not just as families, but as communities and all these things. And one of the the organizations that I ended up like doing a short film community like film club thing was the Boston Ujima Project. And the more I looked into that particular organization about like them trying to build solidarity economies within Boston's communities and really invest in other like funds and community investments, restaurants, grocery stores, other community initiatives that are a lot like less like tangible in the way that you go and swipe a debit card and more in the way that how you hold your neighbors, right? So that was initially how the organization that we partnered and did the Loving Men documentary with came on my radar because a couple of years later, once like the lockdowns and whatnot started to ease up, I was contacted with by James Van Boy, who is one of the heads over at the Boston Ujima Project, and said like, "Hey, Ray Sam, like I remember that you did documentary work, like your short film was really fun. We also have like I have a friend of mine, Jordan Mudd, who we just want to pitch this documentary project to you, talking about masculinity circles, right? And like these like sort of community support circles. And they'd asked me if I was familiar with it, and thankfully I would say like yes, because I was also doing prior work with the Center for Hope and Healing based over in Lowell, and some of their initiatives around how we can build a healthier masculinity, and like what are some of the things that go into that and how we also can like step away from things such as like domestic violence and abuse and other things around that nature too. So of course like I was like familiar with the subject, how these circles essentially play out, but I've never actually participated in one myself. And they essentially said, okay, like if you are okay with like blending your skills as being a producer and an editor on this project while Jordan is the one that directs, we want you to essentially assemble a crew here. We have this much in like the budget here. By no means was it $1 million, but we didn't even need it to come away with such an amazing, amazing film. And I'm not just saying that because I spent a lot of time with it, putting it together. But it was great because they in within like their own community and own personal circles knew of other people who were running their own circles, right? Whether it was centered around a book like All About Love by Bell Hooks, or centered around like the idea of like how can we become better uncles, right? How can we actually offer community care and overlooking like young ones and all of these kind of things that people usually are like, okay, well, man, that's hands up. No, that's your work, this, and that. And ultimately, we gathered 11 participants in this particular documentary and filmed it over in Black Market Nubian in Roxbury. And there's so many different like things within that whole like can go wrong, will go wrong, and things like that within the production. But it was the first time that I really felt like in my own soul as a producer and being very competent within that I'm like, oh no, we can solve these problems very effectively. We can have these plans here. We bring together all of these like great people here, from like the people who are operating the cameras, from our scenic designer, from our audio engineer, and all of these things, and really like we're able to lean on our own community resources as well, and saying like, hey, like these are some of the cameras that we could bring here, this is some of the space that we can do here. And essentially what we did is that we filmed with 11 people in the room, right? Like this circle conversation talking about how do men show love and what gets in the way of that? And how can we get to a better place where we can express these things, where we can show these things? And not only is this a documentary that's just like, oh yeah, like this just depicts like one particular group, because again, a lot of them were meeting that same day, but it was always meant as a tool to actually inspire more circles and actually inspire like more deeper conversations on these things, because Kim, when I tell you, like, during the actual filming of it, like, there are times where I feel like I had to even like hold back tears, to an extent too, because a lot of people were coming for at different stages of grief or the different periods of emotions within themselves as they were in the space and talking about the things that they were dealing with, as a man, as a non-binary person, as like somebody who was queer and or somebody who's black, Hispanic, like whatever it was, right? And it was just such like a beautiful conversation that I remember after we like broke down all the lights and packed up all the stuff in the U-Haul and all that stuff. I remember like talking to James, and Gio, who's also part of the Boston New Dreamer project, and saying like I don't want to leave the space right now. Like the conversation was just so amazing in here that there is a very palpable energy that I don't want to leave, right? And they were like, well, Ray Sam, you're leaving with the hard drive, so you'll be able to replay the conversation as much as you want. And even within that, we were just like, okay, we came and edited the documentary initially as a two 30-part installments with an intentional intermission where we invite the audience, the people who have come through a couple of these private screenings that we had in Boston, to actually like examine these things. And actually, we were giving them questions, we were giving them prompts and all these things. And one of the things that reviews that I got from a friend that I invited out to this particular screening, was, Ray Sam, if you told me that I would be in a room with strangers and have to talk about my feelings, I wouldn't have come. And it was so great because I remember like that after part one and part two had like concluded, and she told me that she was just like, no, but like watching part one really did inspire me to say like, hey, this is even like my vantage point within this, and then even within like myself, or herself, like knowing like how she relates to her brothers, how she relates to her fathers and other like men within the life. And I think that a very great, like, again, when you're doing and marketing like documentaries and other things like that, like you're like, oh well, who's your film for? Everybody. And it's just like, yes, but like let's actually see who we can like make like more impact with and one, or maybe not necessarily more, but or essentially like meaningful impact in saying like, hey, we have a group of people that we are targeting, and we want to show them that there is another way outside that is able to like retain your masculinity and really like define it once we take away the power dynamic from it, once we take away the idea of, oh no, you can only do this or I can only do this just because I am a man, and not excavate anything else within that nature there. So
Wow.
um yeah, that's loving
So
men.
is there like was there anything that really stood out to you that maybe thought you thought you knew going into it, and then really after you were in it thought, wow, I thought, I have a whole new way of thinking about uh,
Mm.
I mean, obviously you're a man, right? You've grown up
Hmm.
with masculinity, but when we think about it, there's been so much talk about toxic masculinity and healthy masculinity,
Hmm.
and just there's obviously a lot of men suffering right now, and so
Hmm.
just knowing that these groups are out there just brings me so much hope. But I'm curious, as a man who,
Hmm.
and you talked about not wanting to leave the energy of the space, like what did it feel like personally for you, and was there anything that shifted for in your own experience as a result of it?
Mm. Yeah, I think for me it's the honesty. It was really being able to, and the vulnerability with it as well, because I'm watching 11 people just talk about like some of the most like harrowing experiences of their life, of like their experience with sexual harm, or people who posted them who have died of suicide or anything of that nature. And especially like when I'm going around and like talking about these things, like I feel like it would be hypocritical if like some of these things within like my own past didn't come up, right? Or even like my way of how I relate to my older brother, or my older brother. I'm the oldest, but or my younger brothers, right? And my father and other things of that nature. And it was a thing where even between like that time, like of course, like me and my I grew up with my dad and all that good stuff, and like there's always those periods of time where we don't see eye to eye, and like once you come into adulthood, I'm like, okay, well, why are you doing things like this, or why do you have these particular beliefs? And like we've had like static before, but I remember like we the first time, and this is gonna sound like very like, oh, male masculine whatever, but like I'm not much of a beer guy, but and my dad grew up like loving Guinness, and I was just like, you know what, Dad, like let's split a Guinness, why not, like let's do the thing. And then we were actually able to bond over that, and then I told him, I'm like, and it was like the last day of his visit there, which had already been like such a fantastic trip otherwise. But I was just like, yeah, like it would really mean a lot to me if we could actually watch the documentary together, right? And I actually got a much deeper insight about his father beforehand, and like how he feels like he wasn't able to really like ever like measure up in that particular regard too, because and again, he's a great guy, big community member, like truly like people like hold him up as like a model citizen within like Lowell, and then like contributing to that way. But just like seeing that particular vulnerability and being like, oh no, like there's still so much more I wish that I can do and do in that regard, and like being able to get to a deeper place of understanding with me myself personally with my father, especially there's one particular thing that sticks out to me in the documentary. Was one of our participants had said that like through being in these men's groups, like he was able to say I love you to his dad first before his dad ever said it to him. And
Mm.
again, this is a person in, I believe, either their late 20s or mid 30s or so, right? And I think like if I had to like sum it up with like one like last like tangible thing from here is, I definitely say I love you more.
Oh,
You know what I
wow.
mean? And that's just across the board, whether it's a neighbor, whether there's different forms for it, but like there's definitely a lot more love that I feel is palpable, and being able to name that and say like, yeah, like let's normalize that. Let's bring it some more around.
Wow. I mean, that's so it's so moving to hear you say that. And think about this from a somewhat of a selfish perspective, raising boys. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have girls.
Mm-hmm.
I have two boys, 10 and 15.
Godspeed. Of one of three boys, like yes, Godspeed.
Well, and I feel a personal responsibility to raise
Mm,
them to be self-aware, to have healthy masculinity, and also to feel safe enough to feel the full expression of their feelings and emotional
mhm,
experience. And it breaks my heart to think about the stifling of emotion that men go through because
mhm,
they don't feel like they can safely, or that it is socially acceptable to be vulnerable.
mm.
So the idea of these groups is just so inspiring to me, and I just wish everyone had access to them or was willing to
Yeah.
participate in them.
And they can, honestly, like I think that that's like part of the goal that we have, and it's why even the documentary itself, like we were going through all of the different options of like how we could go about distributing it, because again we're trying to make sure that this was something that was accessible, and that groups, whether they were established or trying to newly establish themselves, could start after watching a documentary like this. And of course, like as we're building the website and as we're putting the tools together, those are some of the resources that we actually have. We do have a watch guide that actually ushers people through the process, because some of these like some people are like, oh, I've never even like considered like what patriarchy is, or like how it might affect me and all these things. And I think that that's also part of like the dual pronged effort that needs to be made here, right? Because again, as you said too, like I think that like especially as a mother to boys, and like really wanting to make sure that like they're not replicating harm or doing anything of that nature, but also like able to protect themselves and do things like that. Because I think that one of the more like unspoken parts of it is that so much of just like the thing that we brand as like toxic masculinity, and like, oh, like what you do in a board meeting, or how you present yourself on a call, or how you present yourself in public transportation, like whatever it is rewarded if you are a man or perceived as a man. So you are getting nothing but incentive structures to just keep onto that path, and you might not even realize that these are some of the things that you're hurting from. Or even and another story I'll tell about an audience member who's a deep friend of mine, my longest friend from childhood, who actually came and saw the documentary. And this is a friend who we've had like so many back and forths and so many like arguments about things that are just like we're just come from like different places, you know what I mean? Just like in terms of like compasses and whatnot. And we ask each other like, why are we friends? Like, why do we keep this thing going? And we know why. We end up like doing this thing where we're holding each other accountable and holding space and all that. But it was a thing for him, like, I was frankly like, oh my God. I'm not sure how he's going to react to some of the content of the documentary here. And I think like much to my surprise, and I think that this is part of the thing where he was just like, no, I loved it in fact. And in fact, like these are actually naming some of the things that I've been feeling, but have been attributing to X, Y, and Z problem over here. Or it's the reason why social media is the way that it is. It's the reason why I perceive women the way that I am, and all of these things, and like have being able to really excavate that inner work, like so I don't know. I think that there's like a danger, of course, into like having some of these circles that are like more preaching into the choir. And it's just like, no, it's not just about having a tight circle. It's also about how we expand the circle at the same time. So I'm just very, very glad, grateful that we have the film on a platform like Kinema. So that way we can actually do these things both in person, virtually, on demand, like truly, 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 can't wait to see like how far we can make that circle.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you just said something really important there too, which and I tie this back in my mind to the loneliness epidemic, right? And I think men
Mm.
struggle with that even more so than women because women tend to be more emotionally vulnerable with their friends. They don't have all of their
Hmm.
eggs in one person's basket, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so, we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of bad things happen when men go searching for a sense of
Hmm.
belonging and a sense of community in these unhealthy spaces, right? And so
Yeah.
these men's groups seem like such a positive and healthy way to get that sense of connection. But I can also imagine if they're not properly structured or guided, they could also become toxic in and of themselves, right?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. You're not wrong.
So you mentioned the watch guide. Do you also
Mm.
give guidance for how to maintain a group in a way that is sort of healthy and I can also imagine that things get vulnerable, it can be scary for people too. And
Yeah.
these aren't therapists, and people are sort of
Right.
practicing new skills that they haven't used. Are there best practices, I guess, is my question for people who may be considering these types of groups that would help make them feel safer and give them some guidance along the way.
Sure, sure. Honestly, my number one thing, and this might sound a little silly, but have a food spread,
Oh,
right? Like,
yeah.
like that's quite literally like during like the production of the documentary, that nobody just got their call sheet and they're like, yep, that's your chair, go ahead. We catered. We actually did have like stuff from like around like the Roxbury neighborhood there, and we all broke bread essentially. We all had our exchange right before it, and I think that that was like a thing that helped like round people sitting together at a table. And of course, I'm sure that you could also relate as a mother. I'm not sure what your family practices and traditions and dynamics are, but like in my house, it is hard getting everybody at the same table
Oh,
outside
yes.
of holidays, right? But getting back to that tradition is literally like a hey, like, can you pass me this? Oh, this is really good. Like having these kind of conversations that can naturally come about is fantastic, right? I think leaving room for the disagreements to happen is also like another really big thing there too, right? I think that there is um a certain kind of thing where it's just like, okay, yes, we're all agreeing here, we all have this and that, but like if we don't feel like we're in a safe space to actually challenge an opinion or be able to say like, hey, well, this is actually like my vantage point on this, or as somebody with sisters, without sisters, like whatever it is, like people are coming in with different points of views, and I think that like actually being able to like leave space for that challenging, because I think that we're in a very like boundary happy culture where we're like, oh, that's in
Yes, that's right. That's right.
like and of course like there is something to be said about protecting your peace, but also if these groups are really going to function in the way that we want them to, right, that actually adds value to community and actually has community care and whatnot. But and it's not just like, hey, can you watch my kid, or hey, can you drive me to the airport? It's like, hey, I don't feel safe with my partner right now, I'm afraid for my life, for his life, for their like whatever it is, right? And how can we actually go in and intervene like as safely as we can and do these kind of things? Because again, like especially within like certain communities as well too, like when police come, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how that actually escalates things? Who knows how that's actually going to impact like the person that really needs this is being hurt by this other byproduct of the patriarchy here,
Right.
right? So how can we also be equipped to not just like, saying kind words with our pillows and all that kind of stuff? Like there are periods of time where it's just like, hey, we do need to relate to each other in this way. We do need to have like these kind of boundaries here, but also I'm challenging you because I love you, right? Because I want to see you do better. I want to care for you in that way. So I think
Yeah.
that those would be my two sound bites for you.
I love it. I love it. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, one of my favorite things that you said was talking about the friend that you disagree with and why are you friends? And I just think that we live in a culture now where we don't disagree, we just shut people off, right? And
Hmm.
we go into our own corners and we just crystallize our own beliefs and we don't have spaces that are safe for us to just understand why somebody might have a different perspective on something than we do, right? And so I think you're right, and I think about that in the context of a men's group, but in the context of any place where humans gather to have
Yes.
space to respectfully disagree with each other and that's really how we deepen connection too is if it's always
Mm.
superficial pretending that we agree with each other, right, then you don't
Hmm.
feel the same sense of connection to somebody as if you actually have an honest discussion and you get to a
Yes.
place where you get to know each other in a deeper way.
100%. 100%. They're with you.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh my gosh, this has been such a phenomenal conversation, and I really want everybody to watch the documentary to really think about what your core message is. So, for people watching who want to find the documentary, who want more of you, where can they go?
Sure. So if you're looking for the Loving Men documentary, I would say go over to kinema.com, and then right over in that search bar, type in Loving Men. In spirit of the inclusive prices and pricing and whatnot, it is actually you can rent the film, and it is a pay what you can rental. You could pay anywhere from $2 to $20, like whatever you truly feel like is valuable for the film. And also, you can gift it to somebody as well. So if you wanted to even buy the film on behalf of a friend, a cousin, or a group of people and all that stuff too, Kinema also allows for that to happen. And if you're looking for me, then you can search on LinkedIn. I'll use my government name in this case. You go and type in raysam.com. That's spelled Raysam. I should be one of the few Ray Sams out there that are doing the thing. And also on Instagram, if you would also love to connect in that regard as well, then you can go to my handle at rayviation.rocks. And that's where you can keep up with all the fun things that I do living as a creative in the city of Chicago.
Wonderful. Well, I will make sure all of those links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and for all of the work that you're doing. It's really inspiring, and I'm so grateful that you are willing to share it with us.
Truly, truly, it's been an honor, Kim. And also, I would love to even gift you the documentary as well.
Oh, thank you. I would love that. That would really, really be incredibly generous of you. And I would love to watch it with my kids and my
Yes,
yeah, all the men in
yes,
my
please
life.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, truly, wide and far. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the Impostor Syndrome Files. If you would like to continue this conversation in a safe and trusted space, I would love for you to join my virtual discussion group every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. For the past several years, the group has been limited to women, but it is now open, regardless of gender, to anyone who is interested in exploring and troubleshooting common workplace challenges, building better awareness of ourselves and others, and becoming more inclusive allies at work. Check out the show notes for more info on how to find us, and please join us next week for another episode of the Impostor Syndrome Files.